It truly baffles me that we don't see more small phones around, and I don't mean the likes of the Pixel 9 Pro versus its XL counterpart kind of small, I mean properly small. Ones that you can easily use one-handed, fit into tiny pockets, and still retain most of what makes those bigger models so great. These mini devices have seemingly had their time, and I'm honestly very sad about that. I pre-ordered an iPhone 12 mini back when they came out, and not because I love iPhones or really wanted to use iOS if I'm totally honest, but I wanted a smartphone in that form factor. And after the 13 mini became the last of its kind due to people, well, simply not buying enough of them, I returned to bigger devices and have been craving a mini phone ever since. I'm not gonna lie, I spend an unhealthy amount of time sat at my desk. It's my job. And up until recently, I'd just been using this awful old chair, just not good. So when FlexiSpot sent over their BS14 ergonomic chair, my back was ecstatic. It has everything my old generic chair just didn't have. Adjustable backrests, independent lumbar support, a slight forward tilt which opens the hip angle, and adjustable headrests and armrests. It's built to be adjusted and keep you comfy no matter your size, and the breathable mesh material makes the BS14 well ventilated in the hot summer months. My favourite part probably has to be just the plushness of everything. It feels so supple, it feels so good. And FlexiSpot is now running its brand month where you can find some incredible deals and savings not only on the BS14 chair, but also their standing desks, which is what I have up here as well and have been using for the past year plus. It's been phenomenal. Check all those out following my link in this video's description. So get yourself set up with the FlexiSpot and your back will thank you. I know mine has. And a massive thank you to FlexiSpot for sponsoring today's content. Smartphones are absolutely huge these days. My main phone, the OnePlus 12, absolutely dwarfs the iPhone mini. Sure, my bigger phone can fit way bigger batteries in it, actually over double the size of the 12 mini. And it has all the great camera sensors and lenses that I personally crave and lament other phones for not having. But I feel like there is a compromise to be made here. Apple launched the iPhone 12 mini in November 2020, and this is coming up for half a decade old at this point. You always see people claiming phones these days are too big, so it's hard to get your head around the fact that these just did not sell well whatsoever. I know a few people who still use an iPhone mini, and that surprises me, particularly because the 2200 mAh battery in this thing was just never great, and after 5 years of abuse, it's really struggling in a lot of phones, in particular my model, which has a 78% battery health rating. In fact, my phone is telling me to service the battery, so it'll come as no surprise that, well, this thing just does not last very long on a charge anymore. But the second you pick one of these things up, coming from like a 2024 or 2025 flagship, you are immediately hit by the lack of heft. It feels like a weight off your shoulders, literally. And in a world that, sorry to get a little bit real for a second, seems to be chronically online and drawn to these pocket computers, this little compact display in a lightweight body just is incredibly refreshing. It's an absolute joy, and I truly miss phones like this. For those of you unaware of what these minis really are, they had, for the most part, the same specs as the full-size iPhone 12 or 13 respectively. Same cameras, processor, RAM, storage, display tech in terms of like pixel density and refresh rate. It was only really the sheer size of the screen and the chassis and the battery that really deviated, going from the standard model to the mini one. So you really did have a truly compact flagship in your pocket. They cost a little less than the bigger phones on launch, but today still command a pretty high price tag considering their age and their known battery issues. These high prices are likely because there's just nothing else like them on the market. And I know there's a bit of a cult following for these little phones. I paid about £150 for this unit on eBay. It's in very good condition, 78% battery health, and it's a base 64GB SKU. The more sought after 13 mini, which has a much smaller notch, and a slightly different layout, in very similar condition can command upwards of double that price, which is insane. And as long as you get one with a good battery, these are still very usable in 2025, and they're likely still going to get another 2 years of software updates, so there's still a little bit more road ahead of them just yet, and that's probably why they've held their value so well. They are still very valid smartphones, and for those like me who want a truly compact flagship, this is an actual option, at least right now. Battery woes aside, it's quick enough and the cameras are good enough if you really aren't fussed about having the best of the best. I mean, you know you're not getting the best by purchasing an iPhone 13 or 12 mini. And I think my recent experiment with the iPhone XR, it's like a 30-day, it's more like a 45-day if I'm totally honest. It proved that if you're willing to drop your expectations just a little bit, using an old iPhone is totally viable, and actually probably the reason why you see just so many older iPhones in the wild. They do just sort of keep on going and do the very basics well for a long time before being obsolete. And I took some photos with this thing because of course I did, I mean you lot know me. And you know what, not bad at all. I mean it still sort of does the Apple thing of flattening colour a little bit more than I'd like. But for a phone this old and given its price point, and I'm just kind of nitpicking at this point, I love having the ultra wide as an option even if the quality just isn't amazing. And as was the case with my recent iPhone XR experience, the 12 mini's cameras really impressed me with how well they've held up down the years. And alright, the flat sides thing, we need to talk about that for a second. Look, they work on the iPhone 4 and the 5, they even work with the iPhone minis because of the size of the phones. Flat sides work when you can wrap your mitt around the phone. They do not scale well. Flat sides do not work on an XL or a Pro Max. You need something rounder because our hands aren't shaped like cake tins, they naturally curve, and that's why for decades we've had at least rounded backs on our phones, even if the screens on the front were completely flat for a very long time. You guys know my opinion on flat sides, I just had to get that out of the way because on the Mini, they feel just right. I'm not saying that all phones need to be mini, by the way. I think what we have with sort of the Pixel 9, the iPhone 16, even the Pro models, which are very similar sizes, it's a really good balance of heft, but also the ability to keep all the high-end features, you know, the big telephoto cameras, big camera sensors, big batteries, really nice screens, all in one package. I think the size and weighting of like the Pixel 9 Pro is incredibly well judged this year. But I still truly believe, as a smartphone enthusiast and as someone who genuinely has a passion for technology, that there is a place for these truly mini phones as options. No, not the likes of the Zenfone 9 or 10, which themselves are just not that much smaller than a Pixel 9 Pro if I'm honest, but ones like the iPhone 12 and the 13 mini, because these phones still have life left in them for a software update standpoint. But the minute that they become obsolete, we won't have anything. Ironically, the Nothing Company, I believe, is actually probably best suited to create a mini class of phone. Punk rock startup with a cult following and a knack for making unique and interesting smartphones. Tell me you wouldn't buy a mini smartphone from them. I mean, I would pre-order one immediately. I love the Nothing 3A series. And I also sort of understand why people didn't buy these. Most are glued to their phones these days. With short form media like TikTok being as prevalent as ever, people want to be able to see stuff bigger and clearer. And I understand that if something doesn't sell well, there's almost no reason for a company to just go out and pour millions into making it. But that doesn't mean that I totally accept this reality. The iPhone 12 and 13 mini were such obvious dubs when they came out, and for whatever reason people decided not to buy them, and because of that, our options are bleak for something truly pocketable with high-end features in the modern era. I miss flagship smartphones. For me, there's nothing quite like them, and the second that we see a compact flagship like this again, I'll be buying it in a heartbeat. I would love to see a mini flagship comeback.